Okay, so here's the plan. I want to make bread. I know this is like a craft channel, but I want to make bread. I have the house to myself and I'm in the mood to make bread. So I have flour, I have salt, I have baking powder, baking soda, yeast. I'm gonna look up a recipe right now, but if you want to make bread with me, then make a tea and come hang out while I figure out how to make bread. And hey, if you're new here, hi, I'm Laura. This is the Last Minute Laura channel. When you come here, you can usually find me making something or doing something crafty. Today, bread. Okay, so first step in bread, so the internet tells me, is yeast. So we're gonna get the yeast. I have salt, I don't have all the ingredients here yet, but I'm gonna start with the yeast. So I've got a big bowl. I'm going to put 1 cup of really warm but not all the way hot water in here, and then 2.5 tablespoons of yeast. Let me double check that. 1 cup of water, 2.5 teaspoons of dry yeast. Okay. I think I also need to add sugar at this point too, so I'm gonna grab the sugar. All right, I've got my 1 cup of warm water. I've got my yeast. I'm gonna put a teaspoon of sugar in there to feed my yeast. And then I'm gonna do 1, 2 and a half. I don't think a little extra yeast will hurt anyone. And now I'm gonna mix the warm water in. Actually, I'm gonna bring you over for this because something cool happens when you mix the yeast. All right, and now I'm just gonna pour in my 1 cup of water. Give it a little mixy. All right, and now I'll leave you on a time lapse so you can see what happens to the yeast in the course of a few minutes. All right, so the yeast is bubbling, which is good. That means it's alive. Let's see if I can get a good view of that bubbliness. You see how it's all frothy now? That is because the yeast is eating the sugar, and that's gonna make our bread nice and bubbly. It also smells really good. It smells like yeast. It smells like bread. Okay, and now it's time to add everything else. So a little bit more sugar. The total for, the recipe I looked at is 1/4 cup. So I put in a teaspoon. I'll put in another teaspoon and a bit. And I'm gonna put in 1 hefty teaspoon of salt as well. The recipe says 1 tablespoon, but I think a hefty teaspoon will be fine. I'm gonna get some olive oil also. You can use, it said vegetable oil, and it said a couple of tablespoons, so I'm just gonna do a little glug like that. Very scientific. And now I'll mix that all together. I'm wondering if I should put some herbs in it. That might be nice, don't you think? Some herby bread. Let me get my herbs. Maybe some basil. Oh, rosemary? How about some rosemary? I think basil will be fun, because I'll put some garlic butter on it maybe. Plus it's just like it's an easy herb. And then some rosemary. I grew these last year. Here's how I'm grinding it up. I don't know how much rosemary is too much rosemary. This is like 2 loaves of bread, I think. That's probably good. Gonna get a wooden spoon. All right, and now it's time to start mixing in the flour. So at first I'm gonna mix the flour in with a spoon, and then I'll switch to my hand once it turns into some kind of dough. The recipe I looked at said between 3 and 5.5 cups. So I'll do 1 cup at a time until it starts looking like a dough. Maybe a little bit of cracked black pepper might be good in here too. I think I'll add some black pepper. Rosemary, basil, black pepper, don't you think? And then when you put butter on it, it'll be like this perfect herby thing. I could put garlic in it, but I think that I'll just add garlic to the butter. Number 1, more or less combined. We're gonna be massaging this together after, so I'm not really worried about lumps. Cup number 2, there's 1. Well, we'll call that too. This is why I am not a baker. I like to guesstimate for baking, and you can't. You're supposed to measure. Hopefully this will turn out. If this turns out, I will use it as proof that I don't need to measure things ever. Maybe you should measure. So how are you doing? I'm well, thanks for asking. I've been filming a lot lately. I hope that some of these videos actually make it onto the channel. I'm not really sure how they fit into my actual content, but I'm enjoying it, so that's good. All right, we're on cup number 3 out of a possible 5.5. Minimum 3, maximum 5.5. That's what the recipe I saw said. Oh, that's actually not true. I looked at 2 different recipes. One said 3.5 cups and the other said 5 cups. No, one said 3 cups, the other said 5.5 cups. So I'm looking at that like it's between 3 and 5.5. This is hard to do while sitting. I don't love this part of the mixing. I don't like the sticky stuff on my hands. I don't like it. The texture is yucky right now. It's gonna be a nice texture, but right now it's yucky. So in this step, I'm just grabbing the dry outer parts of the dough and smushing it into the middle. Some might call it folding. I'm folding the dough because the middle is still really squishy and wet and I don't want to get it on my hands. So I'm kind of flipping it over every time that I mush it so that I don't touch the same spot twice. Also, I just washed my hands, so don't worry. Also, really, it's only Alex and I eating this bread, so, and Thunder. And maybe the baby birds. And depending on how good it is, maybe a squirrel or 2 outside. Oh, maybe I could bring one up to the neighbors. That might be nice, bringing some herby bread. Yeah, let's do that. I'll make 2 loaves, one for us and one for our neighbors upstairs. Again, I just washed my hands, so it's almost time to plant the garden. And honestly, I had a little bit of a meltdown yesterday. I put all of my seedlings outside because it was supposed to be 18 degrees Celsius, which is well within the range of good for outdoor plants. But we have squirrels because we live in the city and I've never had squirrels disrupt my things. So I didn't think that would happen. And oh my gosh, heckin' squirrels got into all of my seedlings. Some of them buried peanuts in, my tomato plant had a peanut buried at the bottom of it. They knocked out a whole bunch of my nasturtiums in order to bury stuff in the pots. But they're just pots of potting mix, squirrel. Can't you tell this is not a spot to put your food? So I don't know how to deter the squirrels. What are your recommendations? If you have squirrels bothering your garden, because I'm pretty sure they'll come back once these things are planted into their actual containers, you know what I mean? They're bothering me, they're bothering my seedlings while they're in 4-inch pots in seed trays. So I don't know how they're going to react once these go into raised garden boxes. And it kind of worries me because I've been, for the last almost 2 months now, I've been growing some of these seedlings I think some of them, it's been almost 2 months since I planted the seeds. So it's I know they're replaceable. I know I can grow more, but it's it's been a bunch of time that I spent on these things. So to have them be murdered by a squirrel is obnoxious. All right, so this bread is coming together. Let me show you what it looks like. It's not done being kneaded, but here's what it looks like right now. If I rip it apart, you can see it has no stretch to it. It just rips apart. Once the gluten develops, which is what is happening because the water is absorbing into the flour is getting massaged and that's causing gluten to form, and gluten will make it stretch way more than this. Right now it's just Play-Doh. But we're gonna keep working it. Oh, we've only added 3 cups of sugar, or 3 cups of flour. I mean, I kind of want to add more flour, but I feel like this is kind of already like bread textured. Ugh. Do you want to see what the kneading looks like from my perspective? Here, let me try and get you in for this. Maybe it's wet enough to add some more flour. I just don't want it to be too dry because you can't really add water after. So I'm gonna do this for another 5 minutes maybe, and I'll come back to show you what the bread looks like or what the dough looks like to see if it looks like it needs more flour or not. Okay, so I covered the dough ball, which is much silkier now. You can see it's nice. Anyway, I put some olive oil on top of it and on the bowl around it. And now I'm just covering it with some saran wrap for about an hour and a half, hour and a half, until it's much bigger. Probably double the size, but we'll see what happens. So I'll come back here in an hour and show you what it's looking like, and we'll see if it needs any more time. All right. It's been a while now. This looks awesome. So now we're gonna do the second part. We're gonna punch it down, get all the air bubbles out, and then I'm gonna knead it a little bit more, probably for another couple of minutes, just to get it all nice and smooth, incorporate the rest of that oil. Okay, and now I'm gonna knead it on the table because it's still not a texture that I like. So something has changed about the dough. It's got a lot more stretch now. You can see it's still tearing, but it's a lot stretchier. I don't know if it's done, but I'm gonna knead it now until it's a nice soft ball again. Then I'm gonna cut that ball. Actually, I might do one more rise in the bowl, and then we'll cut it for the final rise. I think so. I don't know, what do you think? In the recipe, it was only one rise, and then you put it in the baking dish. But I think maybe I'll do 2 rises, because I don't know. It feels like I didn't get to this point with mixing the dough last time. It wasn't soft like this. So put that back in the bowl, put the saran wrap back on top, and then I'll come back in, I don't know, half an hour? Let's see what happens in half an hour. All right, so there's half an hour. How's it looking? Hasn't grown that much, actually. Well, that's okay. It still grew a bit. Let's give it one more once over, kneading it, and then I will break it into 2 pieces and put them into the loaf pans for the final rise. By the way, you can see the texture of the dough has changed. It's like super duper stretchy now. Like you could stretch it for a lot longer. It's a lot more stretchy. Anyway, I'm gonna give it one more once over with the kneading, and then I'll break it into 2 pieces, and we'll put them into, I'm gonna put olive oil in the pans, or maybe I'll do butter. Yeah, I think I'll butter the pans. It smells really good though, I can say that. You can see it's super stretchy now. So I'm gonna break it into 2 pieces. I'll make one a little bit bigger than the other, because one bread pan's a little bigger. And now I'll just knead that one into a nice ball, and then I'll make it into a bit of a log and set it aside for a minute. And there's the second one. So now I'm going to take my little dishes, and I'm gonna just get some butter, and I'm gonna butter the dish at the bottom and on the sides. I did this last time and it was a good idea, so I'm gonna do it this time. All right, there's the bigger loaf, which maybe I'll stretch it out a little more. little more butter. And the little one. There we go. Now I'm just gonna manhandle this thing a little bit here. Stretch it out. It's gonna rise again. So just wanna stretch it out lengthways a little bit. And there we go, there's the first one. There's the second one. Scooch those down a little. All right, and now I'm gonna cover them with a greased piece of saran wrap. And I will also place a tea towel over it just to keep it warm and to prevent it from getting dried out. I'm gonna make the tea towel a little bit damp. There. Done with the butter, and that's that for that. Now I'm going to preheat the oven to, I think, 350. I'll check online after and pull everything out of the oven. I know I'm not old like that, right? You store your pans in the oven sometimes, right? All right, so I've preheated the oven. While the oven's preheating, these are gonna rise again. I'm gonna wash my hands now, and I'll come back probably in an hour, but maybe an hour and a half to see how these are doing. So hang tight. All right, so it's later now. The bread has risen. It's not like the biggest, but like it's been rising for like hours. So I don't know, maybe I did something wrong, or maybe I just didn't make enough, but this is what it looks like right now. This one's filled out pretty good compared to how big it was when we put it in. And this one's filled out okay too. I wonder if I should leave it longer. Like if it'll keep rising, or if it's like done rising now. I kind of want to just put it in. This one's still really like liquidy though. Maybe I'll put this one in and we'll see how it does. See if we should leave that one longer. Put that plastic wrap back on. So I put it in the oven at 350 and we're gonna leave it in there for half an hour, and we'll come back. I'll come back in 20 minutes to have a look at it. Well, this is not good. This looks not finished. Don't you think? I'm putting it back in. That's like probably sacrilegious for baking. But you know what? I am not a baker. So I'm putting it back in the oven and we're gonna try and have it cook all the way through. Golly. Hopefully we'll have better luck with the second loaf that is still in the process of rising. It's sitting here on the stove. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I'm putting the next one in. I'm gonna just put the next loaf in. Hopefully this one will look better. Wish me luck. I must have done something wrong. It felt like it was going so well. Okay, we're gonna leave that one in for 30 minutes. I think this one was a wash. Dang it. Okay, so it doesn't look like terrible, but it doesn't look good either. Like the outside looks like bread, but this doesn't really look like bread. It's like too squishy. Hopefully the second loaf does something different. Yikes. All right, let's try this again. How does that look? Oh, it's brown. Oh, that one sounds better. Still didn't rise as much. Oh well, I'm over it. Okay, like it's not terrible, but it's not, like it looks, this side looks good. I don't know, something's off. It's like it didn't rise. It tastes really good though, but it doesn't look right. but tastes really good. Oh, I'm gonna eat some of this. It didn't rise. I'm not delivering that to the neighbor. I don't know. Something went wrong with the rising. It looks like a banana bread, but it's supposed to be like a regular bread. I was hoping to film a bread video. It tastes good, but it does not look good. Well, it looks, okay, on camera maybe it looks good. I don't know, it looks very weird in real life. Like for a real loaf of bread, that's a little strange. Tastes good though, like I said. I'm gonna eat some with some garlic butter. Anyway, I'm over it. That was me trying to make bread. I hope that you enjoyed watching me try to make bread. It's yummy. It doesn't look like how I want it though. I wanted like a nice fluffy loaf of bread. And this looks like, look at that. What is this? So, oh well. It does taste good though. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you had a good time. Thank you to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you would like to join my Patreon and support the channel, the links are in the description down below. And if you liked this video, don't forget to click the like button. Anyway, friends, that's all for today. I will see you next time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye!